Good morning. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Bro. It's up and after it early on this Sunday morning. We're recording live 9 a.m. here, and last night was somewhat of a dud. It's unfortunate. I wanted to have an instant post-game reaction and be all fired up, but the Sixers came out flat. When you heard the news that James Harden wasn't going to be available due to a maintenance day with that hamstring, that was already losing the juice, and then you're on a second half of a back-to-back. The team flew in at 3 a.m. and barely got the proper rest to perform, and it looked like that. That's exactly what we witnessed on the basketball floor, unfortunately. A lot of three-pointers that didn't fall, barely any assists, so there just wasn't a good team play. Joel Embiid looked frustrated once again, and it's clear that his body is going through some fatigue, and I'm not extremely worried about it. But right now, during this recent stretch, it does seem like there's a lot happening in terms of his conditioning level and whatnot, and you just have to power through that, give him some rest, give him some opportunities to kind of hit the reset button. 3 games in 4 nights is a very difficult task, and we keep talking about this second half of a back-to-back in Miami, but something I'm focused on is that third game on the 4th night when they play the Chicago Bulls. That's a tall order, and I can't wait to see how they respond to that horrible game that we just witnessed yesterday when you see the Chicago Bulls, who have not been on a great stretch. By the way, before we really get going, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate it. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any game, you can utilize the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. It's a no-brainer. I'm giving you $20. That'll pay for your parking. Promo code BROADS. Get yourself to a game today. And then TikTok, Broads Media. We're incorporating a lot of fun there, so make sure you hit the follow button over on TikTok. And yeah, I'm not going to go overboard here. I'm not going to lose my mind or go to some sort of extreme. I saw the reactions last night, and a lot of people despise Doc Rivers. Why? Because Furkan Korkmaz was in the starting lineup, and on top of that, they struggled against the zone. I hate to break it to you, but not every time a loss happens do you have to blame the head coach for the loss. Eric Spoelstra is a good coach. Greg Popovich is a good coach. Look how many losses they have on their resume, right? You think about Eric Spoelstra so far this year, who have the Miami Heat in a good position. Think about having over 20 losses. Does that mean Eric Spoelstra on every single one of those losses was the reason you can point the finger at him and say he sucked and he's just absolutely pathetic? No, I don't care if you started someone else over Furkan Korkmaz. You weren't winning that basketball game. Now, I don't love the amount of love that Korkmaz gets, but there is truth to what Doc said after the game, and that's the fact that we needed a secondary ball handler for our secondary unit. If Shake Milton was to start, then what do we have off of the bench to give us some sort of stability with the rock in the hands? And you're going to act as if you insert Shake Milton instead of Furkan Korkmaz and you were beating the Heat? I do want to respect the way the Sixers played because they did creep back in. 5 points. They made it interesting. You thought, are they really going to pull this off? Are they really going to battle that hard and find a way to win by 2 and then we all go crazy? Like, is that serious? Tyrese Maxey making some shots. He finished with 3 threes, 17 points. At times, I wish he was better distributing the basketball, but, he's trying to play a new role, and he's trying to be that go-getter when James Harden is on the floor. And now that you have to play 48 minutes without him, it changes that style that you're trying to get Tyrese Maxey to play with. It's a very difficult task, no doubt about it. So, yeah, they played hard, and they had the intensity there. They were just undermanned, and they were also a bit tired based off of all of the circumstances leading up to seeing the Miami Heat last night, and that's okay. It really isn't a coaching problem. Oh, the zone, they can't beat the zone. They didn't have the players to beat the zone yesterday. They didn't have the players. Joel Embiid's getting triple teamed out by the three-point line. Tobias Harris can't even make a simple pass to get him the ball into the post. Whenever they did get him the ball at times, the shot clock was winding down, and you're forcing him to take a more uncomfortable shot. Not that he has any uncomfortable shots because it's Joel Embiid, but not his preferred spots. Now, they tried to open up the game for him a bit, where they would work farther away from the post and maybe from the elbow area. And he did get to the line a handful of times. But still, I mean, when you just have Joel out there, you can see the difference on everything surrounding the squad. And I'll be honest with you. I know I harp on it a lot. Matisse Thybulle is a problem. People are talking about, oh, well, when James Harden was in the lineup against Cleveland, you could tell that Embiid was bothered. And Embiid only had, 20-something points or so, low 20s. He didn't look like he was himself. That's because you don't have to respect Matisse Thybulle. Another game with 0 points. So here's a starter with 0 points again. A starter, 0 points again, without even James Harden in the lineup to make up for the deficiency, to make up for the scoring. Without James Harden in the lineup, one of your starters just gives you a big old goose egg. There's a reason why he's so wide open. I actually had a Miami Heat fan who didn't watch too much Sixers basketball reach out to me and say, Broads, do people always leave Matisse Thybulle this wide open? Yes. There's a reason why Embiid's starting to get a little bit annoyed, and he's starting to show it a bit. The guy does nothing for you offensively. If you don't think that plays a role in why Joel Embiid is getting the looks that he's getting defensively, you do shrooms. You do mushrooms. You do drugs. You love acid. It's just that simple because it's so obvious to the eye on how much of a problem Matisse Thybulle is offensively. And there's a big snowball effect. You know, Tyrone and I were talking about this yesterday on The Fanatic. If someone gets beat defensively, let's use Tyrese Maxey as an example. Because against Cleveland, Okora's out there scoring buckets in the first quarter, and he's making you look like a cone out there, and he's just driving by the cone. It's easy to blame the help defender after the initial defender gets cooked and gets waxed. That's what the eye sees. Oh, Embiid, he's not giving you defense. Oh, Embiid, he's not sliding over. Oh, Embiid, he's not contesting the shot. Yeah, I don't want my big man to pick up all these fouls in the first quarter against the Cavs when we know we're going to need to utilize him down the stretch, and we know his presence is so felt and so damn needed. The problem was Maxey getting annihilated. Sometimes it's more than just what you see at the end, is my point. When you think about why Embiid can't get going, why Embiid's having tough moments, well, look at the way the team is playing them and forcing it to be a living hell because you can disrespect a Matisse Thybulle. But you're also going up against a team that understands how to make Joel work. And Eric Spoelstra, very good at his job, and he put his team in a great position to force them to beat you in other ways. And you can tell when you're shorthanded, they just didn't have those options. And that's what you kind of chalk it up to. I know it's somewhat cliche, but it really stands true. It's somewhat of a write-off loss. This was a scheduled loss that you had written down anyway. I'm not going to tell you anything changed. My mind did not change because guess what? When you think about what this team needs to do to win a championship, will this ever be on their radar? Win a second half of a back-to-back when flying to Miami, get in at 3 a.m., play without James Harden, and then you need to do that in a 7-game series against the Miami Heat? No. So that's why I have the approach that I do at times, that the NBA regular season, sure, there are things that you can notice and there are takeaways on a night-to-night basis. But in terms of the full context, what we witnessed last night will never be a scenario that we need on a road to a championship and to a Larry O'Brien trophy. Now, if you say, well, maybe if Joel Embiid can't stay upright or if James Harden has a hamstring, that's fine. But if you lose those pieces, there's a reason why we said go get James Harden, because you weren't good enough as currently constructed prior to the trade with just a Joel Embiid. There's a reason why you traded Ben Simmons and brought James Harden in. You need both of those players to be on the floor for that chance to be as high as it is. And I'm not worried about James Harden. This is a maintenance day and something that they're focusing on for the long run instead of just this specific individual night. And I'm totally okay with that approach. But I wonder what we're going to see with the Joel Embiid experience, just based off the fact that you could tell there's a lot of miles on the tire so far. You've asked him to do a lot, especially before the trade happened. You demanded him to be a lethal weapon for you and carry everyone. I'm a little surprised to see 36 minutes, to be honest with you. 36 minutes, second half of a back-to-back. Was there a way that you could have distributed it better? Maybe, but also keep in mind, you wanted to win that Cavs game. Imagine if Doc Rivers told you afterwards, we didn't really care about the Cavs game, though, so I leaned back a bit on his minutes because I was focused on Miami. The same people would be outraged that Doc Rivers ever made such a comment, and you have to be focused on winning that game in Cleveland before you can think ahead. So you can't have it both ways. But, you see 36 minutes, and you can read the body language. I'm just surprised that it got to that point. Maybe you could have distributed it better, but this is more just after I see it. It's easier said than done, and I'll perfectly admit that. I'm okay here. I can be honest and say, yeah, after I saw how it played out, now I'm having those thoughts. I don't know if I would have necessarily had those thoughts prior, but maybe it also hurts me, and there's so much pain in my stomach when I'm witnessing Paul Millsap takes shots that's hitting off the back of the backboard. Excuse me, not the back of the backboard, the top of the backboard. He took a corner three, and it's hitting the top of the backboard. We would take 1,000 shots in an NBA game and wouldn't even get to that level of atrocious. Now, with Tobias Harris, see, he had moments that are okay. He did. He had moments that were okay. And then he's got moments that make me want to pull my hair out. And you know how important my hair is. If you have it bald broads, you don't broads. Imagine if I was bald. I'm not the same person. Even with the same mannerisms, even with the same facial expressions, even with the same voice and the same tone and the same body language, with it all. If I'm bald, I'm Hunter. Come on. I'm Hunter. Yeah, I can't be ripping my hair out. But that's what Tobias Harris does. There's moments where I feel he's in a nice spurt, and he gives you a couple nice points, and he attacks and gives you 4 points within a 40-second span, and you like the aggressiveness. But then there's times where he can't make a simple pass. Like, I'm eliminating that for my offense. Tobias to Embiid. I'm eliminating that. First off, I don't know how you could be that bad in that area, but he is. And there's a disconnect big time between the two. I think when you study the way that Joel Embiid reacts to this, he's fed up with it. Dude, make the damn pass. Could it be that hard? Is it that difficult? Get your best player the basketball. Think about how hard it is to establish post presence. Even at 7-2. I don't care who you're going up against. No matter who it is. Now, last night, Miami obviously had some players in Bam and just the way that they play in general. They're a tough squad that force you to put in a lot of effort. But it doesn't matter if you're playing a small center and a team that likes to go small. Just the fact that you have to utilize all that energy to get yourself planted, to put your feet in the dirt down low, and then say, yo, give me the damn basketball. When you do that over 48 minutes, it's toxic on your body. And imagine doing it over and over and over again, but then your damn teammates can't even get you the rock. That's brutal out of Toby. And I'm someone who's a little bit easier on Toby than everybody else. But that's a simple part of the game. And that's what irritates me the most. We're talking about a simple play. Pass the basketball. And speaking of simple, that's all we're asking, Toby. Right? Like, I feel like it would be harder if I'm demanding him to be something he's not and say, take over games and give me 40 points. Well, then I'm just out of touch and I'm out of line. We're saying be a catch and shoot guy. We're saying stand in the corner and space the floor as a 4 and then just take the damn shots instead of dribbling. Less putting the ball on the floor, Toby. Simplify your game. The more you simplify it, the better the results. Right? It would be different if we're saying, dude, can you go beat every defender off the dribble, please, and dribble penetrate, please? Then we're totally not pursuing this the right way, if you will. But damn, it's brutal. It really is. I need a cup of coffee. That's what I need. I'm on my 3rd cup of Joe so far this morning, and that's okay. That's the way I need it. That's the way I approach my life. If you're watching this early this morning, thank you so much for being here. I know it's a weird time, Sunday early morning. If you are catching this, though, at a time before noon, I will be on the Fanatic noon to 4 as well, discussing more about the 76ers. I got Tom Moore of the Bucks County Courier-Times, who covers the Sixers, joining me. Can't wait to get his thoughts, and we're going to have a lot of fun, as we always do. So, yeah, definitely make sure you check that out. But look, this team shot 17.1% from deep. They scored 14 points in the first quarter. They scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. It just ain't going to get it done. And, just chalk it up to one of those games for sure. But it's okay to talk about it with a bit of an annoying message because, yeah, I mean, that's bad. Furkan with a couple threes in that first frame. And I get what Doc's trying to do on top of Shake Milton and keeping him with the secondary unit, but it's also the attempt of maybe getting Furkan going. And the fans can feel a certain type of way about it. You even heard Joel Embiid express that same thing is, I believe in him, I believe in him. When you're a veteran head coach and you've been around the block, obviously, tough love is important, and Furkan has seen some minutes diminish over time. Not as much as we would like to, trust me, but he's clearly not playing what he once was. I would say that, and keep in mind when he was playing a lot, there were COVID protocols and guys were getting knocked out of the lineup, which plays a big role on him even having an opportunity to log in some of those minutes. So I guess that's a little bit flawed of a statement. But anyway, with Furkan Korkmaz, if I'm a veteran coach, and I've been thinking about this lately, more than just Coach K. I'm going to take a sip of this coffee. I've been holding it in my hand and pretending I was going to take a sip and never got to do it yet. Not pretending, I was. But anyway, not just with Coach K and everything going on with Duke, but I've been studying coaches lately on the sidelines of all games, not just basketball. And I think about putting myself in that position. And did I have any passion wanting to coach? And yeah, there was a time where I wanted to coach hockey and be on the bench and kind of go through that experience and just think about that bond that you have. And then having 20 men play hard for me on the ice, battle in the corners, go through practice, go through a 4, 5, 6 month span, and then go into the postseason and have them buy into everything that we do. And there's been moments where I wondered what would Coach Broads be like and how solid would we be at whatever rank I was coaching at. But my point is, when you're Doc Rivers, you're like, I believe in you. Let's go. Go out there and take your shots. Keep shooting. Go, 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 especially with the circumstances of what that game gave you. Not on an any given night type of scenario. Not just on a random Tuesday and James Harden's available and you think, screw it, let's just see what happens. No, but because James Harden wasn't there, could you start agree? Sure, but we can't act as if Danny Green has been magnificent and been on a great run. The same people that hate Furkan hate Danny Green. Oh, start Niang. Niang's in a comfortable groove right now with where he's at. You don't have to worry about George Niang getting going. So this is somewhat of an experiment, and you're just fooling around. On one given night, I don't like Korkmaz. I despise Korkmaz. I've ripped the dude into shreds for literally years now. I think everybody understands where I'm at with the kid. But with that said, you're the coach and you go, look at what we're at. Look at my alternatives. Look at my options. Look at my bench. Shake can stay on the bench. You slide a three-point shooter in for spacing purposes because Matisse Thybulle doesn't give you damn help on that side of things. And he stinks with scoring the ball. Awful, absolutely terrible, really brutal, disgusting level offense. I got to try and help out the spacing the best that I can, even though he's not actually knocking down his shots. That's what he's capable of doing in theory. I got to figure out some way to create some sort of space. So if you're mad at Furkan, you better keep that same energy and apply it to Matisse Thybulle, because the reason why you have to make that decision, once again, now we peel the layers back. It's not just one thing. Let's peel the layer back and then understand why this even needs to happen. That's correct, because there's an issue with somebody else out there too, and that's just reality of the situation. So I'm looking at it obviously just from a one-game scenario. I want Furkan Korkmaz nowhere near my basketball team in the postseason. You can make the argument, and maybe it's due to a lot of the spacing that James Harden brings. I'm not ready to die on a Shake Milton hill by any means, but I just wonder, based off of what we saw against Cleveland, is it possible, just like with Maxey being wide open and his stats are outrageous from three since James Harden was brought to town, Can the same thing be said with Shake, where just the spacing and everything involved in the threat that James Harden is will give him a golden opportunity to have way more space and defenders nowhere near him, which is where I'm getting at here is when you think of the rotation. You have your starting five, you have Green, you have Niang, you have your backup big man, which we're assuming is going to be DeAndre Jordan at this point. And your ninth, if you are going to go 9, and we know Doc Rivers likes to use a lot of players off the bench, is that 9 Shake Milton instead of Furkan, which at one point you would have thought it was a no-brainer, Furkan, with the way that he was playing earlier this season. But I don't want anything to do with him. People screaming about Isaiah Joe. If Isaiah Joe was in that basketball game, you're not winning. That's not the difference in winning or losing. You're not breaking down the zone any differently. It's just reality. That was a scheduled loss. And that's basically where you're at. I know it's cliche, and all the beat reporters were talking about it yesterday. All right, it is what it is. That was a loss that I wrote down months ago when I saw the schedule. But there's a reason why they say that, because you've seen 82-game regular seasons before. You understand how it works when you utilize your information of X amount of years studying this league, and you see a lot of teams. It makes sense that you fall flat on your face at times, and that's exactly what the 76ers did. Now, I get the timing of the show. I am going to open up the phone lines now if you are interested in calling in. I see a lot of text messages flying in. I see the chat happening as well over here. So I appreciate you so much joining me this weekend. The phone number is 856-442-9805. That's the phone number. If you want to call in and have some dialogue with me, now is your chance to do that. You can also text that number for the text board. And we will start with Nick from Havertown, PA, who texted in and said, let's start a new winning streak on Monday when the Bulls come to town. Such a weird-ass game tonight. Offense was atrociously bad. Absolutely, Nick. It was bad. And look, you went on a win streak and won a bunch of games in a row. And now I'm not going to expect them to keep up that pace forever where it's 5-game win streak, 1 loss. 5-game win streak, 1 loss. 5-game win streak, 1 loss. No, not at all. I did see a lot of fans, though, really taking this to the next level and say, well, your bench players have to perform or you're not going to go on a playoff run. In what world do I have to sit there and demand Korkmaz to play 40 minutes in a playoff game, or any of these players that played last night to play in a playoff game for 40 minutes? That's an outrageous mindset. That's a pathetic way of thinking about things. No, this has zero relevance to what you'll see in a postseason 7-game series. Why? Because in that situation, you'll have Embiid playing 38. You'll have Harden playing 40. You'll have Maxey in the high 30s. You'll have Tobias in the high 30s. And then that Matisse Thybulle role will probably be somewhat of a rotating door between Danny Green, Niang, Matisse Thybulle, and that'll kind of be moved. You'll never have to do this. You think you're going to have players play the amount of time that they did last night in the playoffs? Let's go to the NBA scoreboard last night on ESPN, shall we? That's where I like to see the best display, if you will, of the box score. You think you're going to get 25 minutes out of Shake Milton in the postseason? I sure hope not. 10 minutes of Isaiah Joe, right? They went 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys deep last night, although Paul Reed played 1 minute. You could touch in the 20s for Niang. You could touch in the 20s for something like that. But you ain't going to get 22 minutes out of Furkan Korkmaz, I'll tell you that for free. And with the Thybulle thing, like I said, you'll have a combination of a Thybulle, Green, Niang logging you in your 48 minutes somehow, some way. But you're not going to need that type of play at all. See, I see the chat right now. Philly Jackson wants Isaiah Joe to get more minutes. Kay says Isaiah Joe can shoot better than Furkan. But you're losing sight of things. Are you winning an NBA championship because of Isaiah Joe or Furkan Korkmaz? They're not even a part of my rotation. These guys aren't even sniffing playoff minutes. They don't even have the jock strap to log a damn second on the floor, in my mind. So you're really, at the end of the day, just wasting time screaming about the 11th guy on the bench, the 10th guy on the bench. If you're thinking about winning a championship, you should not be worried about an 11th man playing basketball at any point. at any point. I just laid out the best way to go about things. Your starting rotation, Danny Green, George Niang, back up big. And if you want to go 9, you go Shake Milton. I'm not even a big Shake Milton fan. I think he is what he is. When he gives you good moments, that's awesome. But he's never really been consistent enough. There's been nice spots, and there's been nice moments within his career, but they're not a sustainable thing. Now, maybe that's because of injuries, and maybe with this team, with this spacing, if he was healthy, he would be able to kind of find his rhythm and get into a groove and put together a good stretch. It's not impossible. There's not a lot of time left, though, and I'm willing to find out what it's like based off of the other options that you have and what else is available for you. If you're analyzing from that side, like, I'll take that over a Furkan. I'll take that over somebody else. No doubt. But if you're going to sit here on March 4th at 9:30 a.m. after witnessing what this team is capable of doing fully healthy and then debate an Isaiah Joe or a Furkan for regular season minutes, I just don't think it's something that's necessary to really have at all. It really is almost like a waste of time for that debate for sure. How many times do we have to watch Danny Green or Thybulle give us 0 to 6 points? Well, yeah, Matisse Thybulle is bad. Now, this individual, unfortunately, this is Eric from Philly. Thank you, Eric, for texting in. I will save your contacts. I enjoy doing that so I can then, of course, have that relationship when you continue to text or call. But how many times do you have to watch? Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't think Danny Green had the worst game in the world yesterday. How about that? How about that? But yeah, I mean, it stings. It stings. It stings. But I'll try and keep it even keel here because, as I always mention, that when I look at this basketball team, I think they have a chance to win. Now, why do I think they have a chance to win? Because they have superstar talent at the top. And can their superstar talent will them to victory over the flaws of Doc Rivers, over the flaws of Matisse Thybulle? It's possible. And a lot of teams that win titles with this crazy amount of talent, they have problems surrounding them. They have a Matisse Thybulle, a player who's not very good at offense, but he logs in minutes and start. Like, it happens. No, not to the atrocious level of Matisse Thybulle. My point is, there's players in a starting 5, and some of those players have issues. But a Kevin Durant balls out, and those issues aren't as problematic. Ken Harden and Ken Embiid and Ken Maxey, that trio, carry them so high up, which isn't ridiculous in the NBA world, to then defeat an opponent in a 7-game series while Matisse Thybulle is causing you problems. And maybe the answer is no, but then Doc Rivers has a short leash. Yo, we got to yank you out. And he's not afraid. I've seen Matisse Thybulle play 17 minutes. I've seen Matisse Thybulle play 19 minutes. I've seen these guys. It ain't working. He's not scoring, and the other team's scoring at will. So what the hell's going on? Right? I mentioned that after the Cleveland game. Like, you allow 40-plus points, and Matisse is giving you zip on offense, and the team's still scoring 40-plus. Then what is he actually doing out there? Whether it's his guy or not that's scoring, as I alluded to, maybe it's Maxey, and someone else is getting beat. But if he's not game-changing defensively and he's giving you nothing on offense, then what is he doing? You might as well, if you're going to give up those points anyway, because teams are going to target someone else, and then win that matchup one-on-one, you might as well get somebody else out there so that you can try and stretch the floor and score some buckets and match on the other end, because what you're trying to do isn't working. So if Doc has the quick decisions and goes to somebody else in those moments, then it can make it easier, and you don't have to put as much pressure on the big fella in Harden. But then again, I'm ruling out so far that there's games, too, where Matisse Thybulle overwhelms everyone, and he gets 4 steals and puts up 4 points. 4 steals, 4 points, a block. Those games happen, too. And then he ends up being the hero. Does it outweigh the negatives, though? Not necessarily. The problem is, and Frank, thanks so much for holding on. We'll get to you in just one moment. The problem is, if I ask you, what are you getting from Matisse Thybulle tonight? You can say X amount of steals and all. But you don't know. You don't know. He's a wild card. Now, the wild card can be very special, and that's what's eye-popping about it. But it could also be the complete opposite, which is devastating to watch. With that, we'll go to Frank in EHT, who's on the Anytime Hotline. Good morning, Frank. Thanks for joining.
Good morning, Broads. How are you, sir?
You know what? Normally we do this post-game, and I'm all in emotions of the game. Right now, it's a little weird. They played last night. I'm having my coffee. It's a little early. They stunk. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, here's my thinking is they've kind of been living on the edge lately with the Cleveland game and now the Miami game. Every team in the NBA goes through a bad stretch or a stretch, but they're still winning games even going through bad stretches. Now, last night, Harden didn't play, and they didn't have the energy level coming back off a back-to-back, and that comeback had to be massive against Cleveland. So let's see what tomorrow night brings with Chicago before we start not panicking, but, getting a little concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to bring up the emotional side of winning that game in Cleveland. Not only did they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they were emotionally ready after that first quarter, of course, to kind of make the push that they did, but that takes a lot. It's a lot of energy to come back from 20-plus compared to a rout victory where you just win from the first quarter on, and you just kind of go through the motions, and your shots are getting – they're hitting and everything's kind of smooth and gelling compared to, all right, we got to dig deep. We got to dig our heels in and make sure we come back. That takes a lot more physical energy. It takes a lot more emotional energy, and that snowball, no doubt. Here's my problem with the Chicago thing, and I know you're not putting so much emphasis on it as you just alluded to, but I can make the argument that the third game on the fourth night may be even more toxic on the body than the second half of a back-to-back after a 3 a.m. flight to Miami. So, we just mentioned how the fatigue is settled in on that game. It's possible it's even worse. 3 games in 4 nights in the NBA is brutal to go through.
Yeah, it is. But I think they'll win because they seem to match up really well with Chicago for some reason.
They absolutely do. Here's my fear, though. They've been beating them so much that Chicago is due.
That's true too. But let's get Harden in there tomorrow night. Now, if anybody's going to have energy, he should, even though the rest of the team might not. And his energy might pump up the crowd and get everybody going. Because I think pretty much they're sold out for the rest of the year, aren't they? Since Harden came along.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would imagine so. And thanks so much, Frank. That's a great call. You're a great caller. Thank you for your time for sure this morning. But yeah, I mean, in terms of it's going to be no matter what, even if it's technically not right now, which it is. Then people end up buying tickets on secondary markets and end up going, but those tickets are bought anyway from other people, so they're already purchased. And yeah, it's sold out. It's sold out. It's sold out. It's just that simple. We'll go right back to the phones. Good morning. You're on Broads Media.
Hi, yes.
What's happening?
How you doing? This is Mike.
What's up, Mike?
Yeah, just calling and talking about, the energy level. I'm loving the Sixers, how we've been playing lately. I've noticed the last 2 games, Joel Embiid has looked out of wits, in my opinion. And I feel like it's Tobias starting to weigh on him. And I've been saying Tobias is going to come through for us eventually. He'll get his groove. But I love when they're happy and they're playing. But the way Embiid's been playing, his energy level's been weird to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's fair to be upset if you're Joel Embiid with Tobias. And I think that that's definitely something to point out for sure. But I'm not ruling out the fact that it can still turn around. Not everyone's the same. And some guys like Maxey, you see right away that he's figuring out how to play with Harden and things are easy. With Tobias, he seems to have a little bit tougher of a time to adjust, but it doesn't mean the adjustment will never come. It's just he needs to go through more experiences and some tougher moments to realize what he can and can't do. And I'm not going to tell you he's going to be a world beater by any means by the end of it, but I do feel that he needs a little bit more time than everyone else. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he'll never be able to figure it out. But yeah, I do agree that there seems to be a disconnect and some frustration. And I think a lot of it just comes from the post presence and the inability to get him the ball when he's posting up. That's a problem right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like I for sure believe Tobias Harris will come through for us. Like, and I've been arguing with people for the past 2-3 weeks about this. But my whole concept is just Joel being happy. Joel being happy, unstoppable. Joel seeming like he's a little upset because I feel like I saw it in the past with Ben Simmons, but everything was going on. You see sometimes where it's just like, man, fuck this. You know what I mean? And I just hope he just stays in. I believe you will because you have James Harden. Like, once you have James Harden, that should boost you even more. And Maxey as well. But I just hope we continue to like stay down there.
Yeah, I think I think he will. And thanks, Mike. Good call, man. Thank you so much for calling in. With Joel Embiid, I'm not worried that he's going to lose it and he's no longer bought it. He wants that championship. He is determined to win that championship. He's dug in to win that championship. You know what fixes his feelings? Winning a basketball game. If he wins a game and gets 20 points instead of 42, he's winning the basketball game. These guys look, he's obviously going to be beating himself up and looking himself in the mirror because he holds himself to a very high standard. But as long as you have a serious chance to compete for the whole thing, you're not going to lose. Embiid's not going to say, screw this team, I'm out, because Tobias Harris is struggling or they're having some awful moments. Like, you know what I would feel would happen? And I look, the percentage is 0.1%. I'm just saying, if the options are he's going to give up on the team and say, screw it, you have a better chance of him walking into Doc Rivers' office, ripping everything off. The hell? I'm saying stripping everything down in the office, throwing things all over the place and saying, I don't want him on the floor. Get him out of here. Put him on the bench. Kicking chairs, kicking the desk over, smacking the computer. You have a better chance of that happening, which once again, 0.00001% chance compared to Joel Embiid saying, I want nothing to do with this. I'm done. I'm done. I don't believe in it. I don't see it happening. I'm giving up. You get my point? Like, there's just no way that would ever happen. You have a better chance of him demanding Tobias never sees the floor again, which that would never happen either. But that's my point. That's my point. Well, we got $2 coming in from me, not myself. That is the name of the individual who donated the $2. Thank you so much, me. Sixers need 3 6'8+ guys starting. Last two champions. Well, that's a very small sample size. And to be fair, in the NBA, sure, I'm sure that there's a lot of guys that are 6'8" and all, but that doesn't do much for me just because Milwaukee had 6'8". I like the Sixers matchup against Milwaukee, to be honest with you. I like the fact that they're 6'8". So you got Tobias Harris is what? Tobias Harris is 6'8". Joel Embiid is over 6'8". James Harden is what, 6'6", I think? 6'6". 6'5", 6'6". I see at two different spots at two different sizes at two different spots. What else am I missing here? Who else we got? Thybulle isn't. What's Niang at? I'm just curious of what he is in general. Niang 6'7". So you got Embiid, you got 6'7" in George Niang, you got 6'8" in Tobias Harris. I mean, if you're going to sit here and analyze this team and say, I don't think they can do it because they don't have 3 6'8" guys, I got nothing for you. I still believe that this team can do some damage the way that they are currently constructed. But I appreciate the $2 donation. And thank you for all your support. Andre, I saw that you were calling in and then hung up. If you would like to come right back on the top of the phone lines here, you are more than welcome to. But getting back to the text messages, we have a text message from Howard. Hello, Howard. I wasted my Saturday night, bro. I did. I was all excited, and once James Harden was no longer available, I couldn't care less from that moment on. I know it's somewhat of a loss that we saw coming, but I hate losing so much. It could have looked better even in a losing effort. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not going to downplay that. 14 points in the first quarter. Fourth quarter, 14 points. Some of those three-point opportunities, jacking up threes, no offensive rhythm. There's no doubt about it. It could have looked better. But there's a lot of circumstances that played a role, Howard, and exactly why it played out the way that it did. You chalk it up and you move on. You don't even really analyze the tape. It's one of those where you throw it in the trash and you move on. It's one of those, forget about it. It's irrelevant. When will you ever really need to be in that situation in a big moment, in a big spot to reach your ultimate goal? That's a scenario that has zero correlation with the big product, zero correlation with what it means to win a title. Will you ever need that sequence? Hey, guys, we got one game. One game. All we need to do is without Harden and plug it in Furkan. We need to fly to Miami, get there at 3 a.m. We have to play them after beating Cleveland and coming back from 20 points in an emotional win. And we got to beat them on the road the next night. We do that, we get the trophy. No. So that's why you got to find that balance. We're analyzing and studying who this team is. What's their identity? What's their brand? How do they play the game as a collective group? How does the head coach play a role in all of this? All of that matters. But it's not an every moment thing that translates. There's some moments that do more than others. There's fourth quarters and half-court sets in a close game when you're looking at some big shots, execution level late, drawing up plays at a timeout, getting good looks with the last possession, with the game clock expiring. Like, there's details within the game that you can definitely put in a little box and say, okay, now let's open up that box because the playoffs started, and these were the details that I thought mattered more and that I highlighted when all the action was playing out. And then there's the box of useless information that you never really peel back into. And you have to find that mix and separate both. And then from there, that's where you fully feel, or that's where you get all of the moments throughout the season that puts you in a position to feel a certain way. With that, Andre, thank you so much, man. Good morning.
Good morning, bros. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
Good. Just wanted to talk about, some concerns that I've had the last few games, but they're sort of irrelevant because, we got the W. But last night, with the loss, it was just like it sort of raised a red flag for me again. And it was like the turnovers and rebounding. And I know, like, even against Cleveland and New York, like, I saw those problems that we had, but then, Harden and Maxey started hitting shots. And then, I see you on the post game and you got no words to describe Maxey's play because he's just playing out of his mind. But obviously, last night he didn't have that same stroke. So I'm just wondering, do you see that as a problem for us moving forward? Like, especially in the playoffs, right? Because every possession counts. So, our rebounding problem and our turnover problem, do you see that being a big problem? And do you think that's like because of personnel that we have, or do you think it's just effort from our team?
So rebounding, it seems that's been a problem all year, no matter what they've tried to do or a different fix or a different look or whatever. I will say, when you don't have Ben Simmons and $30 million sitting there, he was a big part of your rebounding. And you bring in James Harden and he'll give you 8 rebounds, he'll give you 9, but there still is that issue. And I don't know if there's a fix for that, honestly, Andre. I think that's part of this team's identity, which I just talked about, what information you put into a box and what, that's one of those where, okay, it's playoff time. Rebounding has been a problem. And that could possibly be the downfall, unless Harden, Maxey, Embiid, they dominate so much, it makes up for those flaws that are in there from the rebounding department. So to answer the rebounding part of things, there's no doubt about it that that's part of it that I think is possibly going to hurt you legitimately down the road. But every good team has their version of the Sixers rebounding problem. It might not be rebounding. Maybe it's something else. But every team has their version because you can't be perfect. In terms of turnovers, it's a different game, though, because there's less possessions and the game slowed down, and now you have James Harden. So I don't know what the turnovers in the half-court set in the slowed-down game is going to look like when you have such a Hall of Famer running your floor, where I don't know how to answer that one particularly because I think it's a little bit different and only time will tell. But with the rebounding, yes, I think that's something you can highlight and be nervous about.
Yeah, no doubt. I know. I see, like, over the 5-game winning streak. Like, I saw a stat like Maxey shooting like 60% from 3 on like 5 attempts. Do you think that's kind of a mirage, or do you expect that like in the playoffs as well, like Maxey to keep up this like amazing stellar play?
Yeah, it's a good question, and thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. I saw it was since James Harden has been here. I'll go back to this. It was courtesy of Stat Muse on Twitter. And I might have to go back a little bit because LeBron James went off last night, and it was tremendous to see what he provided on the floor. He's absurd. Still doing it at his age. It honestly doesn't make any sort of sense whatsoever. So this was not including yesterday. Let me be very clear. This was not including yesterday's game. So the Cleveland game. Tyrese Maxey since the Harden trade, not including yesterday. 26.8 points per game. 65% from the field, 70% three-point shooting on 5 attempts. Now, Andre just asked, do I believe that that's going to keep up over time and that's what we'll see in the playoff? No, I don't. No, absolutely not. Am I going to expect a 21, 22-year-old kid to end up dominating so much in the playoffs to the point where he's shooting 70% from deep? No, but I do feel that there's a correlation between what James Harden provides from a threat angle shooting the basketball and from a delivery standpoint. He's made so many good passes that are just getting unnoticed as a normal standard play. It's not a normal standard play at all. The guy's literally coming around the screen and hitting a rolling center or a wide open player in the corner with a ridiculous pass. He's hitting George Niang after reading the defense beautifully with a pass behind his back off the floor, a bounce pass behind his back right on the money for a big Niang three. I mean, the dude is doing it so standard that it makes it seem like it's normal. It ain't normal. It's monstrous. It's major. And that's playing a big role in the spacing of what Maxey can do. So I don't know if it'll be 70%. And quite frankly, I would bet against it, but it would still be a lot. It would still be at a high clip. I still think it'll be in that 40 range, which is massive. You get a guy shooting from 40% from three in the NBA playoffs. That's a major addition to your team and good flow and good rhythm of what an offense can run. So no doubt about it, I think he'll still be an important role and still crush threes at will and still knock down shots. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is something outrageous. Maybe it is 50%. Hell, I can't doubt this kid. He just seems to want the moment and want the big shots and sidestep threes and step back threes and off the dribble, pull-ups, all of it. It's amazing. Who am I to doubt him? But if I'm being objective, I would imagine, just like I say, things change in the half-court set, slow down. It's going to be different for him, too. It's a different type of beast. Now, he had some experience last year, and he's only improved tremendously in a lot of different areas. So I'd imagine he'd be even better than he was last year or this year. But it's still a different mentality. Still a different mentality. Although if you're the other team, you're highlighting Embiid and Harden more than you are Maxey. And that is advantage Tyrese Maxey. $2 from Noel. Heat won back-to-back versus KD after emotional blowing lead. Okay. I don't know too much about the relevance here, but that doesn't mean much to me. I'm supposed to look at a 2-game sample size and say that means something to me for the Sixers? Okay. The Minnesota Timberwolves, what did they do? After the Sixers went in there and won, and people made it seem like that was a useless victory. Oh, they only beat the Knicks twice, and they only beat Minnesota. Well, after they got beat bad by 31 points, may I add, where the Sixers put up 133, they beat the Cavs, who are a good basketball team. They beat the Warriors, who's a good basketball team. Then they beat the Thunder. So they went on a 3-game winning streak. Oh, excuse me. Then they beat Portland. So they're on a 4-game winning streak after the Sixers beat them. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. It means the Timberwolves aren't as bad as what people said they were, even though I wasn't giving them the most praise in the world. And I said, the Timberwolves, they're about a 500 basketball team, a little bit above. At the time, there were a couple games over 500, which was good enough for the 7th seed in the West. And now they put together a couple wins in a row, so their winning record is a little bit better than at the time the Sixers played them. They're not a disaster. They're a good measuring stick game on the road. It's not the Orlando Magic. It's not the Detroit Pistons. And it seemed like fans or other outside sources kept saying it was because they didn't want to give the Sixers any credit for any sort of success. Why am I bringing this all up? I don't know. It's sort of irrelevant, I guess. Just like the Heat winning back-to-back versus KD after emotional blowing lead. But thanks for the $2 donation. I appreciate it. Back to the phones we go. Good morning. You're on with Broads Media.
Yo, what's going on, bro? My name's AJ.
What's up, AJ? Thanks for calling, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. First thing I had was watching the game yesterday. I definitely realized that this was the first time we played without Seth and Andre on the squad and not having our replacement being out there. So it was kind of like all the young pieces now and everybody that we have in this little system had to start, we don't got a 3-point shooter like Seth having kind of an up year and Andre having the rebounds. I heard a caller earlier talking about a little bit the lack thereof rebounds yesterday. Well, Paul Millsap, he's trying to do his thing, but I could see that. So that was kind of my first point, just with not having those two boys back, and not having Harden playing. It would have been a different story if Harden was in. But since they weren't there, and they were, again, big part of the offense and defense when that was our whole squad for the first half of the season, I found that gave me put me more to ease with, okay, I could understand, especially with the back-to-back.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Imagine, and I know the Eagles don't do this, but just in a hypothetical world, this is a good example. Imagine your left tackle couldn't play, and then they move Lane Johnson from right tackle to left tackle, and then you slid someone over from right guard to right tackle, and then put in a reserve to play right guard. Now you got everyone playing out of whack, and it's, Tyrese Maxey was playing a good role next to a James Harden, and Tobias Harris plays differently. Like, everything is different when James Harden is plugged in. You remove that, and now you're playing basketball against a very well-coached team in Miami on the road, getting in at 3 a.m., and you don't have a real point guard out there. So, of course, it kind of looked that way.
Exactly. I would like to see Shake in there a little bit more. I thought his explosiveness, we saw in the playoffs last year. I had my ups and downs with him, but this year, was just basically just unlucky for him, which I heard on through CSN. I just been hearing that he was out due to injury and COVID and whatever could happen to him. I like to see him running the point. He looks, I feel like he could fit with Joel, and that leads into my second point I wanted to get to, is just his implementation. And I understand. I don't know. Someone also talked about that. I don't know if if something's going on recently, but I would like to see, I think that should just be in everyone's mind, get Joe the ball in the post. And I understand he just looks like he's stopping at the three. And I won't harp on that because, again, back-to-back, you got to look at more than just a basketball game because there's a lot more that goes into it. But I don't want to feel concerned, but I am wondering, with James Harden out, and God forbid something happens come playoff time and James got to sit, how are we going to feed? How are we not feeding the beast?
Yeah, I feel you. And thanks, AJ. Thank you so much, man. Good call. In terms of if Joel Embiid and James Harden, if one of those two guys aren't there for like a long period of time in your hypothetical of a playoff run, I hate to break it to you, I ain't feeling real great about anything at that point. But there's no reason to really go down that road at this moment. Why is Embiid maybe going to the three-point line or extending out? I thought that was part of the game plan once they realized that they couldn't get him the ball and they weren't operating the way that they would like to. They had to try and get him the ball somehow, so then they ended up pulling him out a bit and, putting him in a different position and getting the ball closer to the elbow and seeing if he could generate any sort of success from that angle. So, that seemed to be part of an adjustment made because of the fact that the traditional way of going about things was just not operating as smoothly as they would like to. And I can't necessarily knock them for that. In terms of Shake running the floor or whatnot, it's not something for a playoff postseason ball that I'm willing to really die on in terms of my ninth guy and my last option running some sort of set stuff. If James Harden's on the bench, I'd rather go through Tyrese Maxey, even though I like him off the ball more than on the ball. I would prefer that as my look. When I'm talking postseason basketball, it's either Harden or Maxey, and not just Maxey. It could be a combination of Maxey and Embiid playing the point center role. It's not strictly, hey, Maxey, run every single possession and all of that, but he would be more of my primary guy, and that's how I would do it. Shake, I personally would be an 8-man rotation if I'm making the decisions, but I know Doc Rivers, and I know he likes 9, and I'd imagine that Shake now is in the mix and fighting for that 9th spot with a handful of other guys as well. And, if we start talking about Shake Milton running offenses and whatnot, it's just such a small percentage of the bigger picture that it's hard for me to really resonate with that right now and really dig into that one. The concern about Joel Embiid and where he's at now, I get it. Couple games in a row, hasn't looked the best. We also have to realize, though, on what he did all year long. This is a long journey. He's mentioned it a lot himself, being very vocal about it. This is a long period of time of basketball. I'm learning as I continue to play this sport that there's a way to pace yourself, and you need to do it properly. And I think what's happening right now is he had to do so much early on because of Ben Simmons. Shame on him. But that put so much on Joel and so much on his shoulders that it's somewhat catching up to him at this point. That's what I think's happening. You're at what, game 60 or so of the season? How many games are they now? If you go to the NBA standings, The Sixers are 39-24. If you round up to 40, that's 64. 63 games in. They're 63 games into the season. Now, some of those, Joel Embiid was ruled out due to COVID in the earlier stages and all, but it's obvious that he's put a lot of miles on the tires so far throughout all the run that he has had this year. I think it's somewhat catching up to him. Now, I'm not telling you that means there's no way to hit the reset button. There's absolutely a way. I'm not afraid of that. I think there's absolutely 1,000% a chance that you can hit the reset button here with 19 games to go or so, 20 games, however long it is, games to go to kind of put yourself in a better position. You might have him sit out a game or, it's hard to have Joel Embiid do that with where he's at in his career at this point. The earlier Joel Embiid would no doubt about it do it. Now you might have some pushback and all, but at the same time, I think he recognizes too where his body is at. And this is me just speculating. I'm sure maybe they might have to think about it, at least have some of those tougher discussions. And I'm cool with it because now you have the option or the ability, if you're not coming off a second half of a back-to-back and flying in at 3 a.m., to win a game without Joel Embiid if James Harden's available and you could beat the Orlando Magic. But let's look at the schedule a little bit, just to play a little devil's advocate on someone who would say, yes, you should, and no, you shouldn't, depending on how you feel. You got Chicago tomorrow, then you got Thursday against Brooklyn. From there, you go to Orlando for a Sunday night game at 6 p.m. Could you see him sit in that game? And then you get a Denver Nuggets game on Monday for a second half of a back-to-back. You got Cleveland on Wednesday. You got Dallas on Friday. So you got a big week of starting March the 14th, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And man, you got a back-to-back then too with the Raptors and the Heat again. You see the Heat again, March 21st on a Monday night at home this time on a second half of a back-to-back after seeing the Raptors the game before on Sunday night. That's pretty absurd, no? That's pretty outrageous. You keep plugging them in on back-to-backs. Every time you see Miami, second half of a back-to-back. You saw against Boston, right? Boston, then he went to Miami. Now this time. Now you see Toronto and then Miami. What's up with the schedule makers? How are you supposed to get a clearer pulse on what's happening during this matchup if this is always the circumstance you're giving the 76ers? Three times? And is that okay? Did I see that already? Come on now. That's pathetic, in my opinion, no? You got the Lakers after that. You got the Clippers. You got the Suns. You got the Bucks. It's a big stretch of ball. Do you give the Sixers and Joel Embiid the night off on Sunday, March 13th against the Magic? I'm not ruling it out. More text messages flying in. Kevin in South Jersey. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate the text message. I can't believe Doc started Furkan, and how come he can never figure out how to beat the zone? He is going to be the reason why you won't win a title. Book it. I'll be back, and I'll actually date back to this loss in Miami whenever their season ends because Glenn screws up all the decisions. Okay, so you're going to date back to this game and say the reason why they didn't win an NBA title is because when they didn't have James Harden in a back-to-back situation in March, 60 games into the season, Glenn Rivers put in Furkan Korkmaz. They couldn't beat the zone. That's why they don't win a championship? They might not win a title, Kevin. They might not. But I'm sorry. If you feel that this game is the reason why they won't win a championship, I just can't relate to that whatsoever. There's zero ties, zero connections for me in that statement. I'm not the biggest Glenn Rivers. I keep calling him Glenn because you called him Glenn. I'm not the biggest Doc Rivers fan in the world. Quite frankly, am I more of a hater? I'm indifferent. You know where I stand with the NBA head coach. He's definitely not the worst option in the world. Not the greatest. Not the worst. If I see this team play like I did last night with those circumstances, who was changing that game? You think Glenn Rivers, I did it again. You think Doc Rivers had the ability to somehow change that game? Really? By plugging in a different player? By going to Isaiah Joe more? Going to whom? Come on. I like Niang a lot. But you're not putting in Niang, Niang's a nice plug when Maxey, Embiid, and Harden are doing their thing. Then it's Niang with that added bonus. It's like what you get the Gabe Vincent. You get Jimmy Butler, you get Tyler Hero. There's Gabe Vincent flirting in 19 points, 17 points, 18 points. It's that extra bonus. If you're relying on Niang to give you 25, 28, 29 points to win because someone else is unavailable, you're way off base here and you're way off touch. So, okay, you thrown in Danny Green instead of Korkmaz. Danny Green? You probably hate Danny Green too, just as much as you hate Furkan Korkmaz. Now, all of a sudden, Danny Green is going to be willing to make all these threes? No. There was no decision that Doc Rivers could have made yesterday that would have changed the outcome of that game based on the circumstances. Not every loss, you have to point your finger at the head coach and say, you were the reason why they lost. Sometimes it's just a collective group and multiple different reasons that add up as a collective unit on why you lost the basketball game. Some games, it's just simple. Other games, all right, let's peel it back and let's break down the distribution of everything and let's think of the pie chart and this and that and this sequence in the second quarter and what happened here in the third. There's plenty of games where you can go heavy down that path. This game, really not much to it. And that's why I didn't even feel obligated afterwards. I'm like, yeah, you know what? UFC 272 is on. I'll watch a little Masvidal, Covington. I'll sit back and enjoy the UFC card. It really ain't worth my time last night because I can do it this morning like we're doing right now. And because there's not much to it to that level. That's the way I kind of saw it. Back to the phones we go. Good morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to call in. How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing today?
Hey, you want to know something funny? I've been listening to you on YouTube, and I was listening to 97.5. I was like, this guy sounds exactly the same. And it turned out to be you.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, this month marks my 1 year at the Fanatic. So it's been a crazy ride. It flew by for sure, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun, and I'll be on noon to 4 today if you have the ability to catch in.
Cool. Hey, I wanted to make a point, right? I'm happy with this loss. You want to know why?
Why's that?
Because all the fans thought we was going to win every single game until the end of the year. That's how it felt. See, I don't see this as a big problem because James Harden wasn't playing.
Right. I agree completely.
Listen, the Heat didn't have Victor Oladipo. They didn't have Kyle Lowry. They didn't have Marquise Morris. I don't want to go up against the Heat unless they got all their players, my best players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want my best players on the floor against their best players on the floor.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. I just think this happens. In an 82 game, you're right. Players are missing. They didn't have Lowry. They didn't have this. Now, I do think based off of Eric Spoelstra and the way that the Heat are, that would be a tough matchup for the Sixers. And I still think you have more firepower with your superstars than the Miami Heat do. But they're a well-coached team, and they are a very structured team that would make you have to earn it for sure, which that's a matchup I would rather prefer not seeing compared to seeing it. But in this one game sample size, you lose and you move on. This team was going to lose. They lost, and we'll see what they do against the Bulls. There's no reason to waste too much energy when you look at everything and all the context leading up to this one.
Right. And one thing that I want to see, it looked like Embiid was tired.
Definitely.
In that Cleveland game. Because he was catching the ball way outside of the paint on his post-ups.
Well, the problem is,
like 8 threes last game. On the Cleveland game. That was weird.
Yeah, the problem is, and thank you so much for calling in and for all the kind words and the experience that you had listening to the voice. That's funny. The problem is they can't get him the ball. Like, there is a part of this, too, where there's another layer. Embiid is sitting there, and we say he's tired and he's fatigued, and that's definitely part of this, no doubt. But he's also begging, give me the ball. Give me the ball. The team is not getting him the ball. And that's also a problem. So why is he now expanding himself and extending himself away from the post? Because that's where his teammates are better at getting the ball. And that's a problem. That has to change. That's something that has to legitimately structurally change, and that's why James Harden, and there's still chemistry things to work out. I love the pick and roll. I love the pick and pop. I love some of their concepts where it's a pick and roll and Embiid's rolling. The ball's getting to him perfectly in rhythm. He kicks it out to a wide open look for Danny Green or somebody else. There's so many variables off the pick and roll, but then there's also situations where, James Harden has to deliver that pass at the right spot at the right moment to get him the ball in the paint. But I trust James Harden doing it way more than everybody else. And I think that that's still things that have to be ironed out. And there's still a lot of working points for sure. You don't snap your fingers at a James Harden and everything's perfect. Now they have to figure out, okay, when and how do I perfectly execute getting Joel Embiid the ball more when he's on the low block? There's a reason why he's extending himself out there, and that's because it's an issue right now getting him the basketball. Now, in terms of the Cavs game, he ended up shooting, was it 8? That seemed a little outrageous when you said 8, but maybe, what was it? It was 4. I think you were looking at his free throw attempts. I was going to say 8. 8 seemed a little too extreme for me, and doubling how many. So he didn't hit any, though. Neither did Tobias Harris. He went 0 for 5. The 5 is important, though. Just noticing the fact that against Cleveland, Tobias Harris took 5 threes. That's the volume we're looking for. The problem is the 0 is not what we're looking for whatsoever. We need way more out of him in that department, no doubt about it. But, yeah, he went 0 for 4 from 3. Definitely would like to see him with some more presence, though, with his back to the basket. And that's more of the surrounding pieces than anything else. We got a super long text. That's about 3 texts long. Dare I dive into this? Dare I dive into it? Wow, this is long. We'll go for it a little bit. If it ends up getting out of whack, then I'll stop. Hey, bro, my text is long. My apologies in advance. Make no sense the blame that fans are putting on Joel. He's not to blame even one bit. My goodness, the guy doesn't stop. He gets triple covered at times and gets hit and falls a lot too. What's he supposed to do? He may be fatigued, but it's not his fault. Also, do you see none of the other guys even came close to or run over to help him when he got triple covered? They stood around. Whose fault is that? I'm not worried about the offense or Embiid's fatigue. The offense was very bad last night, but I'm not complaining or concerned about that one bit. Teams will begin full court pressing the Sixers and trying to force them into turnovers and score 12 to 15 less points a game, although it won't stop Joel or Harden from getting their points or getting to the free throw line. I'm not concerned. Even with less points, defense needs to replace the offense. I don't know if I'm necessarily getting the vibe, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm necessarily following the full-on message there. But with that being said, I want to thank everybody so much. We'll have things there. I think that one kind of put my brain into a little bit of a mush. Full court press, this and that. I think that the 76ers will be just fine. Will be just fine long term. That's my 2 cents here. If you stayed through the whole hour, I want you to take one thing home with you. Whether you're driving, listening to the podcasted version, which, by the way, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, on any of your podcasting platforms, search Sports Talk with Bros. We are there. And if you use Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a little 5-star rating, a little review. I never heard anybody. You can do that. That would be greatly appreciated. Just a little selfish plug there. That would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, if you're wherever you're listening, my 2 cents. If you listen to the whole hour, there's one thing to take away other than, damn, Bros, your hair is just phenomenal. The Sixers will be just fine. Don't overreact to a game against Miami. And Chicago, the 3rd game on the 4th night might be even tougher. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind no matter what you see. All right, with that, thank you guys so much. If you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay to the party here long term. We have a lot of fun at Broads Media. Smash the subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out. It will help out tremendously. And then what? SeatGeek, promo code Broads, TikTok, Broads Media. Thank you guys, and I will see you later on.